Okay, and we're back with another video where I'm going to talk about my favourite RPG settings. Now, when I say settings, I'm not so much talking about the actual rules system, I'm talking about the actual campaign, the flavour, the background of a setting. Now, there are many different roleplay campaign settings out there. Some of them have elements I consider to be good, and some of them have elements I consider to be not so good. And opinions differ to this, it's all down to people's personal tastes. However, all I've done is I've picked a few of my personal favourites to discuss in this video. So, without any further ado, number 1. The New World of Darkness, well, the new iteration of the World of Darkness, by White Wolf and Onyx Path Publishing. The New World of Darkness is very much a setting like our own. It describes the real world, however seen through a mirror darkly. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in the World of Darkness, all of the organisations, the buildings, the people that you know from real life exist. However, everything is just a little bit more run down, a little bit more worn, a little bit more sinister. Crime rates are higher, the buildings are crumbling, the glories of the past are even more faded, and people's souls are just a little more downtrodden, in part, or perhaps completely, due to the machinations of several groups of supernatural creatures acting in the background, trying to keep their presence hidden from humankind, but working their evil schemes and plans all the same. Some of them aren't necessarily evil, some of them may just be misguided, but it's a fairly safe bet that most of their plans do not bode well for the mortal inhabitants of the World of Darkness. It is a grim horror setting that turns a spotlight on the darker underbelly of real life by exaggerating it in order to make it more obvious to us in the form of the game. Now, why do I like this particular setting? Well, partly because it is based on the real world, and that gives every player a level of familiarity with the setting. It also makes it quite easy for the GM, or the storyteller as it's known within this game, to find research material. If you want to find such materials for a World of Darkness game, you need look no further than outside your door if you're running it locally, or if you're running it in a faraway city. And I've run World of Darkness games set in New York, Boston, Victorian London, the Dark Ages, etc., etc. All you have to do is look through a history book, look through a city guide, a map, go down to your local library, peruse some books. It's as simple as that. And the whole wealth of human history and human endeavour is available for you to use as research. And this is very appealing to me. I like games where it's easy for the GM to create stories. If you need inspiration for plot in World of Darkness, you need look no further than the news and events of the real world. Now, part of the element I also like of the New World of Darkness is it has a very sandbox feel to it. Now, when I say sandbox, I mean that the game world is presented as a setting, and all of the books that are bought out for it simply hand the storyteller and the players a bunch of tools in order to bend and twist and shape that campaign into whatever sort of setting they see fit. And there's numerous books talking about how to use different variations of the setting to achieve whatever you want. And I believe Onyx Path Publishing have now started bringing out campaign books where they specifically target different genres or ideas and tell you how to make the game fit that mold, which can only be a good thing. You can't have too many ideas. Now, second on my list, number 2, is the Cthulhu Mythos and the various games which feature it as their background, of which there are numerous, the most famous of which being Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu, and there's Pelgrane Press's Trail of Cthulhu, and many more. The Cthulhu Mythos is featured in many different games. Now, why do I particularly like the Cthulhu Mythos? Well, I've always been a great fan of the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, and they deal with themes of cosmic horror and mankind's insignificance in the grand scheme of things. The enemies in a Cthulhu Mythos game aren't simple orc bandits or young vampires that can be swept aside, that can be beaten up in a combat and dealt with in that way. No, we're talking about ancient and incalculable intellects that strode the stars when mankind, or often before mankind, even crawled forth from the primordial muck of the planet. How can you possibly defeat creatures such as this? Simple answer, you can't. And the game isn't about that. It's not about winning in the way some other games are. What it's about is your investigators stumbling across some small part of this world, some knowledge of this strange occult background to the way the world works. And as your investigator comes across this information, slowly it begins to take a toll on their mind. They become more disconnected from their own world as they peek into the larger universe and study knowledge that mankind was not meant to understand. So you might ask, where's the fun in this sort of game? Well, the fun is playing out that inevitable disintegration of your character. It's in coming up with a concept that is rooted in the real world as far as it goes, and then portraying how that character is changed, how they are affected on a deep level by the forbidden knowledges and the insights that they uncover. And inevitably, your character will either escape from the knowledge, fleeing into the depths of forgetfulness, will be changed forever and possibly be deemed insane because of the knowledge that he's found, or will die in the pursuit of it. You don't play a Cthulhu game expecting your investigator to get through to the end unscathed. Hell, most of mine don't even survive past the halfway mark in some Cthulhu games. But that's part of the fun. It's not about winning, it's about role-playing out that change in your character. And I think that can make some very compelling storytelling. And if it wouldn't, well, why are there so many role-playing games that feature the Cthulhu Mythos as their background? It must be doing something right, or it wouldn't be keep being gone back to as a source of ideas by many role-play game writers, and not just specific Cthulhu Mythos games. Even games such as Pathfinder and D&D have incorporated elements of the mythos into their framework. And that's partly due to the compelling nature of the subjects of cosmic horror that H.P. Lovecraft deals with. And I'd certainly recommend that anyone interested in running a horror game at least have a look at a few of his stories. As I say, you can never have too many ideas. Okay. Third and finally on this list is the Forgotten Realms setting. Now, the Forgotten Realms is one of the first D&D settings I played, and although I've played many others such as Planescape, Dark Sun, Greyhawk, etc., the Forgotten Realms is a vastly detailed setting with many books detailing the various different areas and spanning several editions of Dungeons and Dragons, and that's part of the appeal. Chances are, if you want to run a fantasy game in an established background and you want a certain feel to your campaign, that there will be some area of the Forgotten Realms that allows you to do that. If you want a land of sand and genies, Forgotten Realms can do it. If you want a totalitarian regime run by wizards, Forgotten Realms can do it. If you want your standard D&D fantasy, Forgotten Realms is all over that. Whatever you want, you'll find it somewhere within the realms. And this is great because it means there's an awful lot of reading material that you can find on the realms, and also it means that the GM doesn't have to learn the whole of the setting. You can just focus your attention down on the specific area where your campaign is going to take place, and that makes it very easy for the GM to remember just the broad strokes of the realms as a whole, and then really drill down their attention on one specific area. And anything which makes the GM's job a little less stressful is to be encouraged, in my opinion. And also, it's a campaign world that a lot of players have heard of and are very comfortable with. And it includes an interesting mix of races and other aspects, although I'm mainly talking about the D&D 3.5 version, since I've only a brief experience of the D&D 4th ed version and little before 3.5, so I can't really talk about them. However, I'm sure that the 2nd ed AD&D books on the Forgotten Realms, of which there are many, could certainly be plumbed for historical background on the setting and for other information, even if you're not using that system. And likewise, if you're running an AD&D game and you get some of the books for the other systems, you can certainly get a lot of information from them. And as I said previously, more ideas is a good thing. Well, that's 3 of my favourite settings. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk. If you have any comments, please leave them in the box below. Let me know what your favourite settings are in RPGs. Perhaps you have some comments on what my favourite settings are. Perhaps you're not a particular fan of the New World of Darkness. Perhaps you're more a fan of the Old World of Darkness, which is fine. They're both very valid settings. Whatever you've got to say, I look forward to reading what you write. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to click on the subscribe link below.